You know what I hate most? Misleading titles. Hey everybody, this is David, and today I'm going to be talking about Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, the 7th season in the Power Ranger franchise. This series aired in 1999 from February to December, and obviously this is a series that, took a large part of my life. I loved the show when I was a kid, and I grew up watching it and appreciating it for what it is, for its corniness, its cheesiness. It's not the perfect series, of course, but there's a sense of fun, sensibility there. I think that if you know how to just have fun with what the writers are giving you, sometimes they give you some interesting stuff, some stories, and some characters that are actually fun to watch. And with this season, this was the first season to really start mold Power Rangers into what it is today, where it started changing the cast and characters and storylines each year. Each year would be a completely different group of characters who become Rangers, and they would be battling all new villains, and there would still be some connective tissue there, which I'll get into a little bit later. This is probably the standalone season that was probably the most connected to the previous seasons, because this came right after Power Rangers in Space, which was heavily connected to Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Power Rangers Zeo, Power Rangers Turbo. Space was the end of it all, so where do you go from Space? Let's go to a Lost Galaxy. And, I said in my opening that this was a little bit of a misleading title, and I'll get to the reason why later. First, let's get into some of these characters. What did I think of them? First of all, the new Rangers themselves. We got Leo, the Red Ranger of the series. Definitely the one that the series mostly focuses on. And I really liked him as a Red Ranger. He had a fun personality. He wasn't but he knew when to take things seriously. And they were clearly mostly focused on him. And I think it's because Power Rangers feels like the Red Ranger, since he's the leader, should have the most focus on them, because they think that's what boys will gravitate to the most. And maybe that's true, I don't know, but there have been other seasons where some of the other Rangers outshine the Red Ranger. But for this season, Leo definitely served his place rather nicely, and I really enjoyed him as a character. We got Kai, the Blue Ranger, who is the straightforward, by-the-books kind of character. And I liked him. I thought he was cool. I thought he had some really good focus episodes. As the series progressed, he kind of loosened up a little bit, and that was his character arc, I guess, throughout the season, where he was very by the books and was hard on Leo specifically. But as the series continued, you see his relationship with Leo start to, Leo's a good guy. I'm going to treat him a little bit more nicely lately, which started making him more enjoyable, especially when you see his focus episodes. Like, there's one episode where he falls in love with this girl while he's taking care of the commander's daughter. And obviously he starts to get unfocused on his duties, but he learns from that. And it's really good to see that, okay, he's not as perfect as he makes himself to be. By the way, if you didn't know, Archie Ko plays the Blue Ranger in this series, and he was a recurring character in the original CSI. We also got Kendrix, who also works for TerraVenture. This TerraVenture is this spaceship that the Rangers travel in, because it's all about traveling to a new world, right? Discovering a new world that humans can inhabit on. And so some of the Rangers work here, and Kai was one of them. And now we got Kendrix, who is kind of she does like science stuff, I guess. And she's clearly the Billy type of the series. Not as nerdy, thankfully. She's actually a more enjoyable character than Billy Season 1. But her character goes through a really interesting arc too, specifically when we get to the crossover with the Space Rangers. She has a sacrifice a moment where she sacrifices herself to save someone, and it's actually one of the greatest episodes of the season. And the reason they did this was because the Pink Ranger, Kendrix, the actress who plays her, Valerie Vernon, she was diagnosed with leukemia, and so the writers had to write her out towards the end of the season. But they did bring her back, and so they didn't kill her off completely. They only killed her off temporarily, but it was nice because it wasn't her fault that happened. So you understand the reason for bringing her back if you know what went on behind the scenes. And thankfully, she did get cured from leukemia, and she was able to return for the team up with the next season, Lightspeed Rescue. We also have Damon, who is a technician. He does, mechanic, or he's a mechanic or something, and he does like little mechanical stuff. He fixes things, shit like that. We actually see him in the second episode of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, because the first episode is a two-parter, and in part two we find out that he's actually a caretaker on the megaship, the Astro megaship from Power Rangers in Space. The megaship becomes a property of the Lost Galaxy Rangers in this season, because when some of the Rangers go to this other planet called Marinoi, the Blue Ranger Kai and Damon team up and say, Kai needs a spaceship, and he tries to hack into the Astro Megazord to take it off into space to go to this portal to this planet where his friends have went. And Damon is against it at first. He's kind of like the comedic relief in this season. I really enjoyed him. And funny enough, little trivia for you here, he actually got married to the actress who plays the main villain in this season, Trakina. So that was a little interesting trivia for you if you did not know that. And yeah, I like Damon. I thought he really had good chemistry with everybody, specifically Korone. When Korone from Power Rangers in Space returns, I'll get to her a little bit later, Korone and Damon actually play off really well with each other, I felt. They both had like fun personalities that worked really well. And Damon and Leo also had good interactions together, so yeah. We also have Maya, the Yellow Ranger, and she's kind of like this woman. She's a ranger from another planet, right? Well, she doesn't start off as a ranger, but she's the one that lives on this other planet where the rangers go to, and they find these swords in the stone, and they pull it out, and they're destined to be rangers, right? The swords is what gives them their powers. And yeah, she's a fish out of water type of character. It's always interesting when they bring a ranger like that here, especially when they're not familiar with Earth customs, because you get to play with that a little bit. They did that a little bit in Power Rangers in Space with Andros, and they're kind of doing it here again with Maya. And a lot of people might remember her. She was the girl from Not Another Teen Movie. Yeah, if you've seen that movie, you know who I'm talking about. Yeah, she was really good in this series to look at, and to just because of the kind of character she was. She wasn't downplayed as like sexism or anything, but she was a very tough character that could hold her own. There was a great episode where she had to deal with, befriending a villain who was trying to kill her originally, and then she was being downplayed by the villain. Oh, because you're a woman, I don't want to fight you. But she was kind of showing him that, no, I might be a woman, but I can still take you on. And it was a really good episode that really played with the idea of sexism. And you got to respect Power Rangers for that, because they were always good with female characters, especially in their earlier years, I felt. And then finally we got Mike, who is Leo's older brother. He is the Magna Defender. And Magna Defender, it's debatable whether he's a Ranger or not. I think he's a Ranger because he has a morpher. But anyways, besides that, he becomes a Ranger. He basically dies in the first two episodes. In the second episode, part 2, he is killed off, or we're led to believe he's killed off. But we find out episodes later that he actually survived the fall, and he becomes the Magna Defender after the original Magna Defender is killed, and he decides to pass on his powers to Mike, because Mike, he stole his soul or something like that, and that allowed the original Magna Defender to survive. I'm not going to go into all the details, but just know that Mike becomes the Magna Defender after the original one sacrificed himself to save Terra Venture. And Mike is kind of like that character that he's in the I was gonna say Starfleet. He's part of, the TerraVenture crew, the bridge, and he's kind of like Kai in some sense, where he's straightforward and by the books, but he lacks a little bit of personality, and I think that's mostly because the show doesn't really focus on his character that much. He's more of a supporting character than a main Ranger character. Even though there are some episodes that do focus on him, they're nothing that really make him interesting. And he's just Leo's older brother that works on the bridge. Finally, we also have the villains. The villains this season are actually really good. I really enjoy them. In the beginning, it takes their time because they're setting up Trakina to become the main villain eventually down the road. But we have to deal with her father, Scorpius, who is a squid octopus like thing, and some henchmen that we see one by one work for him and betray him and all this. And it's finally until we're introduced to Deviant where I think the villain stories actually get more interesting, because there's a lot of double crossing going on, a lot of things that you didn't really see in Power Rangers, maybe until Power Rangers in Space. And Space was really that season that really started making the villains more interesting, more two-dimensional, I feel. And with Lost Galaxy, they kind of carry on that tradition, and I feel like Deviant was the Darkonda of this season. And funny enough, he was voiced by Rito Revolto, Bob Papenbrook, and I really liked Deviant. He really was a threatening villain. And then we even get Kegler and Velomax, that's it, and they both try to train Trakina and help her become a better warrior. They train her to fight and all that, and she takes control later on, and she does become a very threatening villain. Later on in the season, we get a crossover with the Power Rangers in Space. The Space Rangers return, minus the Silver Ranger. It's only the core 5 Rangers: Andros, Ashley, Cassie, TJ, and Carlos, and they team up with the Lost Galaxy Rangers, and it's one of the best team-ups ever on Power Rangers. I think it's the first official ones, I think. Some people would say the Alien Ranger Zeo Ranger team-up was the first official one. This is the one that really started that tradition, though, that tried to do it every year. And it was a lot of fun. They brought back the Psycho Rangers, who were villains in Power Rangers in Space. This was the team-up after the first team. It was a 2-part team-up, and after the first one was done, they did a focus episode on the Pink Ranger, like I mentioned earlier, Kendrix, where she sacrificed herself, and it was because of the Pink Psycho Ranger that she was killed, because the Pink Psycho Ranger is a bitch. After the team-up happened and Kendrix was killed off, they needed a ranger to take over for Kendrix, and that ranger happened to be Korone. Korone was the villain Astronema from Power Rangers in Space, who was the sister of Andros, the Red Ranger. And so Korone, when she returns, she wants to redeem herself, and she becomes the Pink Ranger for the last remaining episodes. I think it's not even a lot of episodes. I think it was like 13, 14 episodes or something like that. So she takes over for the remaining episodes up until the finale. It's really great because it helps bring this connective tissue to Power Rangers in Space. So Lost Galaxy feels like that season where you get a little bit of some of the characters and things from Power Rangers in Space to help slowly ease us into this new transition where the cast will be changing, the storylines will be changing each year. It was a nice slow transition, and this one helped ease that. And with Korone, I think it was an accident for her to come on here because they weren't planning on that originally. Remember, it was supposed to be Kendrix all the way. But what helped with Korone and her character was that we actually got to see a new side of her, a more playful side of her, something that we never got to see in Power Rangers in Space because she lost her childhood. So she was like a really big kid, and she had, like I said earlier, she had really good interactions with Damon as well as Leo. There was a really good chemistry with her and Leo, and I thought they would have made a little romance go on. But then again, they also tried to do a little romance with Leo and Kendrix, and that never evolved into anything. But for what it was worth, I thought it was great having Korone back and letting her experience to be a ranger for a little bit, and it was a really nice character development for her, specifically what she was in Power Rangers in Space as the main villain. It was nice seeing her redeem herself as a ranger now. There are a lot of really good episodes in Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, and I can go on and pick my favorites. I will say, though, that the first some of Lost Galaxy, maybe the first 15 episodes, takes its time to really set up, but once you get to the Magna Defender, which is like about episode 8 or something, it starts to pick up a little bit more. Specifically, when you hit the episode where he sacrifices himself, that's where the series really starts to get a lot better, and the storylines get more cooler. You'll still hit your bumps in the road once in a while. There's still some episodes that are kind of cringeworthy. Like there's an episode called The Red Romance, where the Red Ranger has a romantic fling with somebody. None of the Rangers, but he has a romantic fling with some random woman, and it's kind of a cheesy episode. But then you get some really great episodes like the Chameleon Warrior or whatever it was called, where it was this monster that could steal the Rangers' moves and use it against them. I thought that was a really well done episode, and obviously the team up with the Rangers themselves. When Mike becomes the Magna Defender, that's actually a really strong, solid episode. There's even this episode that's kind of like an alien spoof kind of episode, where it was actually really well done and didn't even feel like Power Rangers. That's how well I thought it was done. I like it when a show tries something new. In that episode, I think it was called The Rescue Mission. If you check it out, it's actually a really interesting episode for Power Rangers and very different. And you can tell that they were inspired by the movie Aliens. And check it out if you haven't, The Rescue Mission.